Hello, guys, and welcome to Healing with Wisdom podcast, where every week we discuss modern and ancient practical tools to make sense of our lives and break free from the present day chaos. I'm Pepe, and I'm very excited to have you with us for today's episode. In today's episode, we will talk about Stoicism again and how this ancient philosophy can help anyone, especially through tough time, live a more tranquil, meaningful, and enjoyable life. This is the second episode of a series where we are talking about Stoicism and its different teachings and how to apply them to modern life. In the first episode, we talked a little bit about the history of this ancient philosophy. We touched base on that and one of its main pillars, which is the dichotomy of control, one of its most important concepts. How to train ourselves basically to accept the things that we cannot control and focus on the ones that we can control instead. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the concepts of living according to nature from a Stoic perspective, as well as the religious aspect of Stoicism, and a little bit about how philosophers used to think about God and the universe. Before we start, I should remind you that Stoicism is a practical philosophy. What does that mean? It means that listening this podcast, it is going to be helpful, or listening about Stoicism in general, it is going to be helpful, yes, but I do encourage you to put everything that you are going to learn in this series of podcasts into practice to make the best out of it. If you don't put these teachings into practice, they remain simply just words, and Stoicism is not interested in teaching theory for theory's sake. It's a practical philosophy. So go ahead and put all these teachings into practice today and in the following episodes as well. So let's jump straight into the concept of living according to nature from a Stoic perspective. What does it mean? First of all, what does it mean for you living according to nature? Some may think that living according to nature means simply connecting with nature and or spending time in the woods or something like that. It does not mean that at all, even though that's good. It does not mean that you should run around in the forest naked or hugging trees or something like that. It has nothing to do with connecting with animals and the plants around you. Living according to nature has everything to do with human logic. What do I mean by that? Human logic is the number one characteristics that makes us different from other animals. So, if you are familiar with Darwin and its work, The Origin of Species, you probably know that it explains that all life on Earth evolved from a single descendant, right? So we all come from the same being, essentially. However, throughout millions of years, all these different livings that adapted to different living situations and living environments, they diversified into kind of different species, right? And that's why we see life as it is today. It's so diverse. We have animals, plants, humans, and whatever. This obviously reminds us, even though we usually like to separate ourselves from the animal kingdom, we are actually just another species of animals. And genetically, especially on the one-on-one level, we do share quite a few similarities with other apes, such as chimpanzees or bonobos, gorillas, orangutans, etc. Just like other apes, humans have a complex system of communication, right? We are social animals. We display certain behavior that we call moral behaviors. For example, taking actions that benefit others for the sake of thriving as a species, such as the willingness to share food or resources, for example. So, as you can see, there is a lot of similarities between us and other apes. Um, so I'd like to ask this question to you. Why do you think that humans rule the world? Because it's true, whether or not we want to accept it, right? We rule the world. If every human would decide that tomorrow a certain species of, it's not nice to say, but if we were to decide that a certain species of animals were to be extinct tomorrow, this would happen. If a lion tomorrow wakes up and decides that every human should be extinct, it's not going to happen, right? They don't have the power to do that. We do. It's not nice to say. It does not mean that we should use this power in this way, but in fact, we do rule the world. So, what is that makes us so different from other species of animals that gives us this competitive advantage over them? Have you ever asked yourself this question? The Stoics did, and they found two answers to this question. One of them is logic. So that means basically our gigantic brain power and intelligence, right? And the second one is our higher ability for social cooperation. In other words, humans can cooperate in large numbers even when they don't have an intimate relationship with the people they are working with. We are the only species of animals that can do that in the entire world. And that's the probably together with our logic, with our brain power, it's the thing that makes us rule the world and differentiate us from other animals. If you think about it, as Yuval Noah Harari always explains in his talks and also in his book *Sapiens*, if you take a chimpanzee, it won't be able to cooperate with another given chimpanzee if they don't know each other intimately. I'm giving you the example of the chimpanzee because it's one of the animals genetically closest to us. But the point here is that if you change job tomorrow and you work for another company, you're gonna have to start to cooperate with people that you never met before and you don't know intimately. You might not even know intimately your current colleagues, but you still cooperate with them in order to reach a common goal, right? So that's something only humans can do. Chimpanzees cannot cooperate with other chimpanzees if they don't know them intimately, and that's true for every other animals as well. This is what the Stoics mean when they say that we should live according to nature. We should constantly remind ourselves of what distinguishes us from other animals. That is, sociability and reason, right? So we should use these exceptional abilities to our advantage in our day-to-day lives. Perhaps you can start to see how living according to nature has nothing to do with connecting with the forest and everything to do with using our genetic abilities and express our full potential. Also because expressing our full potential gives us the opportunity to give our best to do our part in the society we live in. So living according to nature doesn't just mean living according to our base instincts, or it doesn't mean living in a state of nature. It is an encouragement to live in harmony with the rational order of things. So, if the rational order of things wants us to use our logic and be social animals, then that's what benefit us. The more we grow and mature, the more we shift away from our instincts and use our reason instead. So, how do we apply the concept of living according to nature to our day-to-day life? You should start slowly by inculcating into your life the idea that without our immense ability of social cooperation, we wouldn't have witnessed the progress and the living conditions we do today. And without this ability of cooperation and our intelligence, literally everything that I see around me would not exist. I also would not survive. Like humans, especially also like obviously early humans, but even more so humans nowadays, do not survive without other humans. Like that's also where it comes from, this ability and need of cooperation. We are highly social animals. We thrive only in groups, basically. We are social not just in the sense of that we enjoy our friends' company, but in the deeper sense that we could not really exist without the people around us, and now more than ever. So consider everyone around you as a brother or sister or aunt or auntie if they're older. Because believe it or not, we did all evolve from the same ancestor, and by considering each other as one, we can spread more love and do every day a little bit of good for each other. So when the Stoics were talking about living according to nature, we're not only saying you should use your logic and use your social abilities. They were trying to teach people to spread more love because they knew that more love and more service for other people would make us thrive as a species, and obviously also on the individual levels is good for everyone. So that's the deeper message inside this Stoic teaching of living according to nature. Let me give another example. So when it comes to fulfilling your own goals and desires, the ability to be aware of your action and thoughts could be more helpful in this case. By being more aware, you can refine your action to the point that every time you have an instinct or an urge to do something that does not serve you, you acknowledge it. And instead of letting yourself go in urges and emotions of anger or jealousy or frustration, you use your logic instead. So that's logic there. So it's not only, like I said, cooperation is also logic. Logic in the sense of not falling for your instincts all the time. Especially those instincts that might make damage to yourself and others. For example, imagine you want to earn more money and decide you start investing in the stock market, say. Many people are tempted when they start investing by the quick profits, and they start kind of like buying impulsively based on trending stocks and tips from their friends and family that know not much about it, only to find themselves at the end with, losing money, significant losses of money. These early mistakes are often driven by instinctual desire for quick rewards, and the risk, like taking risk without adequately understanding them, can really damage you. That's basically driven by your instinct, right? Because you want that quick award, and you just instinctively do something without using your logic that's going to basically damage your wallet, right? So instead of being influenced by the latest hype and burn your savings, if you say want to start to make more money by investing in the stock market, take a step back and look to Stoicism principle of living according to nature and recognize that the need for reason in this domain and the need of educating yourself before you make certain instinctive choices is very important. Um, it's something you should consider. Use your logic instead of going towards your feeding your instinct, essentially. In a nutshell, living according to nature for the Stoics means respecting your own human nature by leveraging your ability to think logically and leveraging social cooperation. Without logic and without social cooperation, we simply do not survive. By the way, if you are finding this information valuable, make sure you spread the word even further with friends and family that might find these teachings valuable as well. By commenting, liking, and sharing our podcast, you're not only supporting us, but you're also spreading knowledge to others, and you take part in changing a little bit of their lives as well. That's some serious good karma there. So please don't forget to subscribe, Ensure you don't miss out on future talks is the best way to support the podcast, so that we can invest also more money into this and giving you a better experience. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform and you prefer to watch the video instead, you can check out our YouTube channel, Healing with Wisdom. You will find the link in the description. Now let's move forward and dive a little bit into what religion and God means to Stoics. Now, I obviously understand that everyone has their different opinions about religion and God and what it means to them, and I'm definitely not here to convince people about whether or not there is a higher identity that we can refer to as a God, or the universe, or the divine energy, or whatever. Okay, everyone has their own beliefs. I'm not here to challenge them. However, whatever religion or God you believe in, or even if you are an atheist, you might find that the Stoic point of view about religion is very interesting, and it's definitely worth a listen. So stick until the end. Epictetus, which was one of the most important Stoic, like I explained in the first episode, Epictetus and most Stoics held a pantheistic view of the universe. What does it mean, pantheistic view? Basically, they saw the divine as permeating everything rather than being a separate identity. The Stoics believed in a divine principle that was called the Logos, and this was seen as the rational order of the cosmos, basically. In other words, this was the idea that the universe operates based on a consistent, logical, and predictable set of principles or laws, and it's therefore organized and purposeful. So everything that happens for a reason according to these universal laws, and the divine energy or God or whatever you want to call it is essentially permeating everything and everywhere and everyone. Okay, so there is a certain amount of things happening basically in the universe that have cause and effect, and the Stoics often equated the logos with God or nature. So rather than God and nature being something out there, God for them was literally everywhere. Okay, so when I say everywhere, I mean in nature, in every single atom. Okay, so that includes us too, like includes animals, plants, humans, etc. So God is inside, according to them, God is inside us too. It's in every single atom. So because God was not seen as a separate entity from us and the rest of the world, according to Stoics, there was no such a thing as miracles. God does not engage in miracles. The laws of nature that we were talking about before are not suspended in order to intervene here and there to favor certain beings or to cure someone's illness. Because for them, it would be basically like saying that the universe works through a web of cause and effect, and because there is this person that has this problem, essentially all these universal laws stop working suddenly, and a miracle happens. So according to Stoics, miracle simply are not a thing; they do not exist. And if you think about it, this view of God and the universe is a concept that is quite compatible with the scientific view of the world as we understand it nowadays. I feel like it's basically like viewing God and the universe and religion from a very logical perspective. According to Epictetus, in fact, God would not concern himself or herself with every minutiae related to human affair. There is a little story about Epictetus and his student who broke his leg, and this is a popular anecdote used to illustrate the Stoic principles, basically. particularly about accepting things that we cannot control and changing our judgments and perceptions about them as well. You will find throughout this series of podcasts that as we go ahead, there's different Stoic teachings, um, and all these teachings they kind of relate to the main first pillar, which is about the dichotomy of control, which is number one thing you should know about Stoicism. And we talked about in the previous episode. If you have not listened to that, feel free to, after you've listened to this one, go back and listen to that one as well. It's very interesting. So the story goes as follows. There is a student of Epictetus that breaks his leg, and as a consequence, he was not able to attend the lectures anymore. So he was feeling a little bit discouraged by all this situation, and by this condition, he didn't want to miss his teachings, and he expressed basically all his frustration to his teacher Epictetus, which eventually went to visit him in the place where he was hospitalized, uh, kind of. So Epictetus went to essentially remind the student about the principles they studied together. And he pointed out that lamenting over a broken leg, which was beyond his own control, was not just useless, but it was like wanting the entire universe to rearrange itself just to alleviate the pain of one man's broken leg. So his wound resulted from a series of causes and effects that certainly they did not have the students' well-being in mind when they occurred. So it is pointless to show any disappointment towards this outcome or feeling discouraged by it. Epictetus here emphasizes that the cosmos operates according to a rational order, and to wish things to were different would be to challenge basically that divine order, right? So Epictetus encouraged the student to view this situation as an opportunity to practice the Stoic virtues of acceptance, of patience, of resilience. Instead of wishing the world to be different, Epictetus urged him to adopt his attitude and judgments to the world as it is. In essence, he was teaching his student a crucial Stoic lesson because it's not external events, but our judgments about them that cause distress. While we cannot control everything that happens to us, we have full control over our responses and attitudes. It's also worth noting that the Stoic understanding of the universe and its casual nature can resonate with individuals from diverse religious backgrounds. So basically, what Epictetus is telling us here is that if something bad happened to you, it's a cause it's an effect of a number of things that happened in the universe. So you should not desire any different outcomes and instead accept the reality as it is. Train yourself to accept the reality that you cannot change as it is rather than lamenting about things that you cannot change, right? And that's exactly what we've seen in the dichotomy of control, and that applies as well to the religious view of the Stoics. So, whether one views the universe as a manifestation of God's will or a divine energy, the Stoic principle of acceptance remains universally applicable. The idea is simple but quite profound. So, rather than railing against fate, someone can find peace by understanding and embracing the natural order of things. This acceptance isn't about passivity or resignation, but about recognizing the boundaries of our influence and finding serenity within those limits. It's understanding our limits, understanding our fate. It is a perspective that I believe it can offer peace to a devout believer and also an atheist. So, because it simply asks us to meet life on its own terms, acknowledging both its challenging and its beauties. So this is what the dichotomy of control teaches us, and also the principle of living according to nature teaches us, and the principle the way Stoics used to see religion as well. So just to recap today's episode a little bit before moving forward, and then I'll give you a practical exercise, so make sure you stick until the end. It's going to be quite interesting. We talked a little bit about the principle of living according to nature, that is, living, reminding constantly yourself that you have logic and you should use it, and that you are a social animal and that you should use also your social cooperation abilities as well, because that's how you will thrive as an individual and how we will thrive as a species as well. And then we talked a little bit about the concept of religion. According to the Stoics, they used to see the universe as a divine energy that would not engage in miracles, and that if something happens because of a series of things that happen in the universe, whether this thing you label it as good or bad, you should simply accept it as fate and apply the dichotomy of control concept as well, and basically train your acceptance towards it. For today's episode, I would like to propose a simple exercise that you can comfortably do at home. You can do it right now if you want. Take a piece of a pen and a piece of paper, and start writing it down. Or you can do it tonight before you go to bed, once you have a little bit more time or you're a little bit more grounded and settled, just to bring these ideas down from the abstract, basically. This simple exercise basically just wants you to reflect on the day that you live today. So you take 5 minutes to think about your day and try to list down three events that did not go as you planned. It could be anything. It could be from a meeting that was running late, or a meal that didn't turn right, or missed opportunity, or whatever. Once you list these three events, you, for each one of them, you write down your initial emotional reaction to them. Were you sad? Were you frustrated? Were you angry? If you were angry, you were angry at yourself, at the situation itself. Once you write down the first reaction that you had to these events, you reframe these events from a Stoic perspective by considering the external factor that might have played a part in this situation, on which you had no control whatsoever. Now, once you reframe these events, and you look at them from a Stoic perspective, you are reminded that it's not the events themselves, but your judgments about them that cause you distress. All right. So for each event, I want you to find something positive that you can learn from it. For example, if you had a meeting that ran late and your first emotional reaction was to be angry or impatient about, you might now reframe it and think that there was a good moment in which you were able to practice your patience. All right. So for each one of these events, try to find a positive outcome that eventually came out of it. Maybe you cooked a meal and it didn't turn right. That's an opportunity to learn, a bit more cooking skills. Um, Once you're done with that, close the exercise by writing or saying out loud an affirmation of acceptance. For example, I recognize that not everything is within my control, and I choose what I cannot change. I learn from my experiences and act with virtue and reason. This is what probably um, an ancient Stoic would say, but you can do whatever you want. Whatever words of affirmation are resonate good within your heart, go for it. If you practice this exercise regularly, I, for example, like to write down something positive that happened throughout the day, or even something that I initially labeled as negative that happened throughout the day, and then try to reframe it and see what can I learn from it. And I do this every night before I go to bed. I think it's a great habit. If you can practice this regularly, you can really cultivate a stoic mindset. All right, and over time, you will also find that you're better at handling unpredictabilities of life. So anything negative, quote unquote negative, that happens to you, you don't leave it with distress, but with grace, basically. So whether you are religious, whether you are spiritual, agnostic, or atheist, as you might have seen in today's episode, the Stoic principles they really offer us a lens through which we can view life's up and down, even if you are not religious. If you embrace this perspective, it's not about negating your personal beliefs or something. You can keep your personal beliefs and still believe this perspective as well. If you found today's episode valuable, remember that every single subscribe, comment, and like, or even share the podcast is not just supporting us, but it's really a step towards spreading a little bit more wisdom around you, some wisdom that can change lives and really help create a better world. So if you want to take a moment to engage, you would be amazed at the ripple effect that you yourself can create. And make sure you write down in the comment your thoughts about this episode, what you think can be improved about this podcast, if there is anything that you'd like me to talk about next, or whatever. If you prefer to watch the video podcast instead, check out our YouTube channel Healing with Wisdom. You will find the link in the description. And in the description, you will also find some affiliate links to some books that I would recommend if you want to learn more about Stoicism. The main one that I always recommend is How to Be a Stoic from Massimo Pigliucci. He explains Stoicism in a simple way with modern words. Other books that I listed there, such as the Meditations, they have a little bit more of a philosophical approach to it, which is fine as well. But if you're starting out, I would recommend How to Be a Stoic from Massimo Piucci. You'll find the link in the description. It's an affiliate link, so I do get a small percentage of your purchase and no extra cost to you. So huge thanks for tuning in, guys. I really hope to catch you next week for more wisdom. We're continuing with Stoicism as well. And until then, keep learning and keep sharing.